Hi, it's Deborah Hamilton, and today we are going to hear from the wonderful Dr. Dave Nicol. He is part of the Leadership Academy and also teaches so many veterinarians how to have the best practice life they can have. I love how he starts with, if it's not a heck yes, it's a no, and goes on to talk about the different aspects of veterinary medicine that will educate the veterinarian's tech staff, and the pet owner. So now let's hear what Dave has to say. Hi, I'm Deborah Hamilton. Welcome to my podcast, Why Do Pets Matter? 10 years ago, with my iPhone and a script, I recorded the first episode of the Ultimate Pet Resolution Summit, which chatted with experts about conflicts over animals. Our conversations were intimate, honest, and illustrated how disagreements over animals occur and how those disagreements can reshape people's lives and relationships. In November 2019, I started Why Do Pets Matter, a new podcast that continued these informative discussions. I'm so excited to have you here with me, continuing my exploration into a more meaningful conversation about why pets matter to all of us. My guests and I will share ideas, stories, and experiences straight from the heart, unscripted and holistic. From the bravest moments to the most brokenhearted, we will explore how to resolve disagreements over animals differently. One thing I know for sure is I want to have more meaningful conversations that will help all of us unlock that deeply felt human-animal bond that drives the emotions of conflict. Hi, everyone. Deborah Hamilton, and I'm here now with one of my dearest friends. We've known each other since pre-COVID. That's like how I'm, explaining
Forever.
people.
That's
Yes,
forever.
it
There
forever.
is no pre-COVID.
Yeah, there isn't. That's like another lifetime. Dr. David Nicol, he is really the entrepreneur in veterinary medicine who helps other veterinarians lead their best life in veterinary medicine. He is now running the Veterinary Leadership Academy, plus other things, but we'll get to that. Dave, thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure, Deborah. Thanks for having me back.
Well, I love it. He's my Scottish connection. When I go up there, I won't be golfing, but I'll be standing on the moors. But he told me that he's in England now, so I'm going to have to go by myself. So Dave, we ask you this question, why do pets matter? So I think that when you first were here, pets mattered because they were really part of your life. But has that shifted a little bit since you're starting to shift in your business?
I have a dog that I live with now, who's a moron, and a hound and a rescue, and he may pop up on this show, but he keeps me amused greatly with his nonsense. And he keeps me amused and infuriated in equal measures, and I love the shit out of that little crazy bugger.
Yeah.
So they matter because their their attention is conditional only on biscuits, and that's uncomplicated. That's easy.
And if
I
you
can live
really
with
need
that.
them, biscuits don't even need to be required,
Exactly.
right? I
I
mean, if
I took
you
him for a run the other day, and the first 5 kilometers he was really happy, and then the second 5 kilometers he just decided he'd had enough. This is silly now. And I've been doing a lot of running since we last spoke, Deborah, and doing triathlon and things, and I think he was initially excited by the thought, but 10 kilometers was too much for him.
Yeah, I've
I
been there,
dragged
done
him.
that. Been there, done that. I swam already. I ran the bike already. I did that already. Yeah. My son just ran a marathon over the weekend, so I know how much it takes to do just a marathon, to do a triathlon. It's just even incredible. So
Yeah,
congratulations. So that's
thank
probably
you.
put you in good stead for what you're up to now in veterinary medicine.
There's certainly parallels. I've learned a lot from from the training. So I set myself an objective. It was pre-COVID. I just went back to doing triathlon in 2019 after about a 15-year gap, and my daughter got me back into it. She wanted to do the scootathlon and in our local town, and there was a triathlon, and I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna do that, and I did that, and I suffered, and I looked at my time compared to my time when I was, 15 years younger, and of course it sucked compared to that. But I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. Well, whilst I was on the course, there was these godlike creatures in this sort of very blue triathlon suits with the British flag and GBR and their name on there. And I thought that looks like an elite athlete. And then I looked, and they were going at a speed that suggested they were an elite athlete. And then I looked more closely, and I thought, but they do look like they've got a few miles on the clock more than your typical elite athlete. And that's when I became aware of age group racing, and triathlon is one of the only sports that you can compete literally until the day you die. There's an age category that goes up to like 85s that you can represent your country. And it's not easy to do that, even though it's not elite level. It's sort of sub-elite level, but it's a heck of a lot beyond club level. And so I set myself the objective to race for Team GB in triathlon. And that was I made the internal objective during COVID, and then up on the stage at Ontario Veterinary Medical Association, giving the keynote as one of my talk. I did a talk called "If it's not a heck yes, it should be a no," and one of my rules was set big, hairy, audacious goals. So I made the very public announcement that I planned to compete for Team GB in the year 2025. And I lucked out and got myself a roll down place this year in 2024. So I actually did pull
You
on a
beat it
Team
by a
GB.
year.
I did. So, and I've probably done enough to qualify next year as well. So I raced in the European Championships 2 weeks ago and got my ass handed to me. But it was brilliant, Deborah. And there's so many parallels with um with veterinary medicine and actually just
Any
I put
profession,
with
any.
anything. I mean, it was set a goal. Don't just willy-nilly half-ass, half commit to the goal. Like if you're serious about the goal, go for it. And so I drew up this list of things that I thought, what am I going to have to do? What am I going to have to start doing? What am I going to have to stop doing? And I gave myself the operating system of asking myself the question, so what in the big decision points, what would a Team GB athlete do in this moment? And that's the way I thought for the last 2.5 years. And here I am. I've had a great second proper full season competing at this level. And I've had some wins and I've had some losses, and the lessons keep coming, but the consistent application of effort toward a goal with the right mentors, the right coaches, the right feedback, taking your beatings, picking yourself up, learning more. You just keep stretching and growing. And I just think that's just the most remarkable thing about being human, is the ability to stretch so much further beyond your boundaries than you thought possible. And that's what keeps things exciting for me.
And I love the way you put it. You just have to make commitment. And in our world, the people we help, a lot of the issues that arise with them is that they haven't really set a goal, made the commitment to reach the goal. And then when they reach the goal, revel in the goal. Because I know when you finished that triathlon, you were like, even though my proper arse was kicked, I made it. I mean, I know that's how you felt, because that's how my son felt after the marathon. And I think it was in my 20s, I did a triathlon with no training. I don't suggest anyone do that, but I was a swimmer. How hard could it be to run
Okay,
and
well,
ride a
you
bike?
got the life-threatening bit out of the way first, then that's good.
So, and it was the only one I did, so you know how well I did, but the running definitely was an issue. But
Yeah.
in life and in practice, whether you and in pet ownership, there is so much that you can learn from making a commitment, taking the time. I mean, how many bad dogs have you seen walk into a practice? Many. I mean, because nobody took the time. I always say to people who take one of my dogs home, invest 6 months and the rest of your life will be a breeze. You don't, and really they'll remember it forever, because dogs never forget. They forget by choice. They don't forget because they've forgotten.
Then we'll get senile like we do.
Well, no, not really. I mean,
Well, a
sometimes,
bit.
but yeah. But so now you're off on a new tangent, because when we spoke last time, we spoke about end of life, which was fabulous, but also we spoke about helping younger veterinarians get into the practice. But now you've really shifted a little bit to create sort of what a little piece of what I do, but also you do the grand piece because you're in the thick of it with veterinarians and their staff and their practice management. And I know that's a huge topic, both for all of my listeners, because pet owners want to know how veterinarians are living through this turmoil that's happening now. Veterinarians want to know how to live through the turmoil that's happening right now, especially with clients. And lawyers who would, be called want to know how to help their clients and find a better way forward.
Mm. Yeah, I've sort of narrowed the focus. Like I think I was doing a lot of things in a lot of directions. So I have the vet clinic still in London. I have a mobile end of life clinic that is, uh, another business to run or operation to run. And then I wrote the book for new graduates, So You're a Vet Now What, I have a course for that. Those things are still there, but I'm not actively putting energy into that. Partly because there are a lot of people putting a lot of energy into that. Partly because I honestly was starting to feel a little bit like, I'm becoming an increasingly gray-haired, older white guy, though I don't feel at all like older or like that kind of stuffy part of the profession. I don't think I'll ever be in that bracket. Um, I felt like the greatest energy, the greatest place I could apply my lever in order to help the profession was with owners. And, my whole career experience means I've got not just great empathy with, but, I walk in the same
Shoes.
trench that they walk, in the same shoes, day in, day out as a practice owner. Um, and I have great people, and the freedom that I have from the clinic to do these other things is as a result of doing the other things that I now teach people. That felt like the place I could impact the most veterinarians. I give somebody a book, I coach somebody, I help one veterinarian, I teach a practice owner, a team how to be a better leadership team. That helps everybody on that team forever, the rest of the time. And so that is that's a little bit it felt like a better place to spend the time and the energy. Um, you mentioned, what's it like for veterinarians, and I know you have a very diverse audience listening to this, from pet owners through to attorneys and veterinarians in the middle. And the truth is that it has been an extremely hard few years in veterinary medicine. And it feels like the bad news in some ways just keeps coming. It wasn't easy before COVID, and then COVID came along. There was an explosion of animals. The Great Resignation kicked in COVID, and we saw that in veterinary medicine as well. Partly with, I think, the people that were resigning the most were the 50 plus demographic who were selling their clinics and leaving the profession. And that had an impact on the ability to support and mentor the younger generation who are coming out, having their education disrupted, all of this stuff. And at a time when we needed most input from mentors, we'd arguably the least input from mentors that the profession has ever seen. And that will continue, because you just don't lose. It's like a war. It's like a war. It's nobody's dying, so it's not at all like a war. And that's not to trivialize wars. I hope I'm not misunderstood or misinterpreted there, but it is like a war in terms of generations of people were lost in the wars, the great wars of old, and that had a massive impact. Like, you look at the Great Depressions, it was because of a massive loss of skill and life, because of great wars. Um, and war is a terrible thing, and there is always a period of absolute desolation that's going to follow what is utter brutality. Same thing to an extent with the skills drain out of veterinary medicine. That when you get so many people selling off their clinics in such a short space of time, it's not like the normal passage of transition where you'd have traditionally a practice being investing in a younger person to buy a previous partner out, and the sort of generational ownership model that used to exist would continue. It just that hasn't been happening, and so corporations have come along and bought up all these clinics in this game of pass the veterinary parcel to the next person willing to pay a bit more for them. Giant bubble has inflated, causing all sorts of issues. But one of the core issues has been the loss of mentor talent. And all the academies, all the support you want to give these young vets in the world from a range is okay up to a point. But if you just create more academies and for teaching skills, all you get is more students. The place that real learning is done is in that exam room, in that operating theater, in the dispensary, on the phone with the owner, and that's the contact sport. That's the ring, the dojo. And it's not a dojo because you're not training. It's the ring. It's contact. It's for real. And what you need in your corner are your trainers and your medics, and that is your mentor.
That's dojo, the people who were there before who aren't there now.
Right. And so they were all gone. You know, when I was a vet, I was fortunate enough to work in some great practices with some amazing, amazing clinicians that took me under their wing. And what that looked like was me being able to hop out of an exam room and just go, ooh, what antibiotic should I use here? Or what's the dose here? Or where should I find that information? And that was multiple micro interventions from a mentor spread across a day. You don't get that from somebody who's 3 years post qualified and now they've got a great big title and clinical director, but they don't have a great big knowledge or experience behind them. And they're struggling to find their feet. And yes, that's a generalization. Not all clinical directors are 3 years post qualified, but a significant number are they're not multi-decade experienced doctors, which is what used to be there. And I think that is having an effect. And it doesn't have to be every practice is experiencing this because there's not enough vets or clinical staff to go around. Therefore, small impacts have big ripples on the whole marketplace. So we end up in this grinder where young vets burn out faster due to lack of support. That continually places a recruitment pressure on the profession. We always feel understaffed. And okay, so that's happening on the vet side. On the client side, our economies have been wackadoodle. We've got an election where we've polarized the whole of the United States into left and right, and everybody hates each other, which is just a fiction, but it's real. You know, it's a real thing playing out in somebody else's fictional bullshit agenda. And we've got wars breaking out all across the world. And frankly, everybody is just like, this is just sucks. We're doing it all against the backdrop of climate catastrophe and all of these things. And frankly, it's a pretty difficult time. Economics is, you know, the economy is, who knows if it's up, down, or sideways, but, you know, we've been spending a lot of money on a lot of things economically, and our governments need money and all sorts of uncertainty out there, which makes people, okay, and I mean, I say people, I mean, every one of us, we're all in a short fuse. So clients are grumpier. They're quicker to abuse. They're quicker to react, and veterinary teams are under strain, which creates more opportunities to react. And so, you know, you can see the sort of stress, the tinderbox, and it's, you know, the difficulty the vets face is that they're working incredibly hard. They're working long hours, doing stressful stuff, and there is a lack of empathy from, and it's not all clients at all, but certain clients, and it's understandable why people get grouchy, but you know, it generally isn't because vets are being dangerous in their application of medicine. It's things that fall through the cracks when we're short staffed, and all it does is create more animosity, and people leave more, making it harder for everybody else to stay behind. There's no answering amongst there, but there's just a request for empathy on both sides. It's like, you know, from vets need to understand that clients have got stuff going on, and from pet owning clients understand that the vets have got stuff going on, and actually nobody's out to try and upset the other. We're all just trying to help the animals, and a wee bit of empathy on both sides wouldn't hurt at all. And I know, like in our practice, we focused on that a lot. We work really hard to not select clients who perhaps don't want what we have to offer, and we're clear about what we do offer. We work hard to make sure that the team has the opportunity to do good work, without as much strain as we can, you know, as much of the strain we can take off, we take off. And, you know, and it is possible to do it in a way where people feel good. And I'll tell you, I'll stop yakking in 1 second, Deborah. Just one of our vets recently hit her 3-year post-graduation anniversary. And she's terrific. She's been with us for a year. She's grown so hugely in the year. And I interviewed her on my own podcast, just recently, and it was just amazing to hear her journey of, she graduated in COVID. She went through the anxiety bobsled run of the first 6 months with having such a crappy educational experience and coming out into the COVID world. nearly fell off, wobbled, nearly fell off, but hang on in there. And finally got some good mentoring, got some support, and finally found her way to us. And now she's thriving and flourishing in a way where you think, yes, it is possible to have a good career in veterinary medicine and to do good work and to love what you do. You've just got to find the right people to hang out with.
You
Uh,
really do. You've said so much there that it's, the ability to appreciate that everybody's doing their best. And some
mm,
might be able to articulate better than others. Some might be able to make you feel better than others. And that doesn't mean that they're not doing their best. I'm not walking in your shoes. You're not walking in my shoes. And given the ability to, what is it? Have grace.
mm.
Just have grace as an owner, as a vet tech, as a veterinarian, as the front desk people. Give and take grace, give and take empathy, give and take appreciation, because I don't know what happened to you today. And always strive for breathing. You and I were talking about this before we came on, and I've been helping veterinarians actually take a beat. And I'm sure you do that in your practice too. What happens is we're reactive and defensive. We immediately get into the fray. We immediately think that Dave is saying what he's saying because I'm not doing a good job, or he doesn't like me, or he doesn't like my dog, or whatever it is. And clearly that may be the case. However, I would venture to say, and I'm sure your experience also bears this out, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with, like you said, the years of what's going on and how we are mentored to react, how we are mentored to ask questions. And when we ask questions of our mentor, that our mentors not only help us get better, but also realize the mentee they can be as well, learning how to help their mentees be better because they're working together.
No, exactly. I'm as you were speaking, I was reminded of a Robin Williams quote, which I always found very poignant. It's hard not to be desperately sad and equally, utterly, um, you know, overwhelmed with hilarity every time you think about Robin Williams. Such is the incredible nature of the guy. But, he said, like, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. So be kind.
Yeah.
Um, I just think that would be a very useful way for humans to address each other. And in our context of veterinary medicine, um, it doesn't excuse people being crap. It doesn't excuse people being willful douchebags. But that's not what most people are. Most people are just trying their best with the circumstances they find themselves. Um, and it would be useful if we gave everybody the chance to keep going on that journey towards becoming really good and really competent and just remembering that one day you too were shit. And
Yeah.
some days you too have an off day and are not your best self. And,
Yeah, it's called being human, absolutely. And you're hoping that someone will give you the grace that you need, because I don't know about you, but I have often said something and turned around and said, that was the shittiest thing I could have ever possibly said. But I didn't have the confidence to turn back around and say, that was shitty. I shouldn't have said that.
right. And how much bigger would somebody have thought you for doing that? And how much easier would you make it to model that behavior if many people behaved like that? Sorry can be the hardest word, but that's just a big fat load of ego and pride getting in the way of doing what actually is in everybody's long-term interests and going, let me do that again. I kind of
Yeah.
messed up. Let's take two.
Let's take two. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
It's been a rough day, and that's not your fault. That's really my experience. And can we take a mulligan, right? Take a mulligan and start over again, because as you said, that would create at least the trigger. Hopefully they would pull the trigger of empathy.
Do you know what? You said something there I really liked and I hadn't picked up on you saying before. And I always learn stuff when I'm listening to you. Um, but you said, I'm having a really shitty day. and that's not your fault, but it's my experience. And in doing that, you didn't actually say it's my fault. You didn't apportion a judgmental word to a situation where none was actually required, because it was just an experience, you know. That shall stay with me, Deborah.
Well, I'm glad because it is how we experience things, how we react to things. And that's what I hope to help most people who are listening to the podcast with you and I to understand. You said something else about how the practice of veterinary medicine has sort of shifted from going from the older veterinarian who's mentored 3 or 4 younger vets, and then those vets purchase his practice or her practice, to now having I guess venture capitalists, I think, come in. I think
Probably private equity more,
private
I think.
equity. I always
Yeah.
get those two wrong. My
Yeah.
apologies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
private equity comes in and says, this is a good deal. And that's nothing to be said that one is right and one is wrong. It's just a different way to run a practice. And, a lot of people like the expediency,
Mm.
of going in and going out, because when you're going to your local vet, I love my vet in New York. I miss her tremendously now that I'm in North Carolina. But it would be an hour and 45 minutes. An appointment was a suggestion. But yet she gave everyone the same amount of care and
Yeah.
understanding and empathy and everything.
Yeah.
So that's missing in this. But then if you do have a 9 o'clock appointment and you need to be out by 9:30, oh my God, you are. So what are your takeaways? Because I have found that it's not necessarily part of the practice in a corporate environment to support their veterinarians' empathy, compassion for each other and the clients. The team is, sometimes they talk about teams, but it's always within the 4 walls. And my thought is, well, yeah, that's great. But if nobody walks through the door and you don't welcome them as a team member, then
Mm.
you don't have work.
No, no, exactly. Listen, I think, and your question pertains specifically to, practices that are in more corporate ownership. The drive to that was a drive to or make money. And I don't think anyone should be in any doubt that that is the case. Private equity exists to generate money for fund investors into their funds over a certain time frame. And what everybody saw was an opportunity to roll up what was a sleepy cottage industry for multiples that are far in excess of what any sane person who was going to run a business for 20 20 years beyond purchase, which is what used to happen, would want to pay. And they did that because they were going to be able to generate a much bigger business, generate enough cash to fund the debt. Not that there was necessarily a lot of debt because it was somebody else's money that the funds are using, but certainly to fund the enterprise, in the knowledge that in a 3 to 5 to 6 year window, that somebody else was going to come along and go, "Ooh, I like what's going on there. I would like my slice of that pie," and pay a bigger multiple. So as all the fund holders get paid well, and then the new guys can hopefully grow the pie a little bit bigger. But ultimately, there's only so many of those levers that you can pull that are financial levers. Squeezing the suppliers for every cent that they're worth. Um, Rationalizing your management structures so that you're able to cut middle management. Joke. Jacking up the fees tends to be the place that these guys have gone, and we are hitting a point of price inelasticity where that lever is just not going to be played much longer against the backdrop of an uncertain economic future. I would be worried if I were the next person buying a group of general practices, because the reality is that it's hard to see where the growth is going to come from without investing in things that look after the people at this point. And I don't mean paying like lots of money to keep people in there. Like lots of money holds you in for a bit, but ultimately, if it's a crappy experience of working in a place, it's not going to hold people for very long. And the mood music has certainly changed, and there are certainly reports of, on this side of the pond, layoffs of middle management, some clinical staff from some of the bigger corporations. And on your side of the pond, many branches or practices that have been purchased, been shut down because there's not enough people to run them. That's an eradication of value, not a creation of value. So there is a mood music change here. And the damage that's been done to this profession. And damage is a very subjective thing, because I think if you look at it, financial measures and whatnot, you would say, well, what's damaged here? It's making money. Yeah, short term, but long term, I don't know that it's doing it sustainably. I don't just have my doubts. I fully believe that it's not sustainable. So the measures by which damage has been done is to the fabric, the goodwill, the goodwill of the people within the profession to the profession, the goodwill of our clients to the profession. You can see the erosion of trust. Veterinarians have slipped down. They're still very highly trusted, but they're not as highly trusted as they used to be. So there are impacts there. And I think the distance between the boardroom and the exam room, the decision makers making the big decisions, big impact decisions, and the people who are actually delivering the service, there's a gulf there. And that's not a healthy thing. There needs to be some degree of closing of that gulf. But I think the way to sort of close the gulf is either to revert back to smaller, diversified ownership models where, you have experienced teammates are being found closer to the exam room. And that means owner-operated businesses where you can offer a very personalized mentorship experience for younger doctors. But I think we also accept that corporations are here to stay. I don't think they're going anywhere. And I'm not saying that they're all bad and that, they're individual poor independent practices. There are individual brilliant, like corporate-owned practices, but the difference are the people and their commitment to their people inside those teams and the experience they have of doing that. So I think it's important that the big piggies figure out that model has had some runaway success, but it is a runaway train, and that somebody is going to be holding the can of all that money and have to make sure these practices are happy places and sustainable places for veterinary professionals to work. And I think that means investing in really good leadership so people feel listened to, they feel they're invested, their ideas are listened to, changes are made, they've got influence on those organizations. I think it's a greater adoption of technology that can help us avoid burnout. Like AI is insanely helpful and I think can save every professional in veterinary medicine an hour a day right now with very, very simple inputs that should be adopted. And I think we need to make sure that mentorship time is priced into financial and operational models. And if we fail to do that, we should be really unsurprised when there is no time for mentorship and people burn out and flame out of veterinary medicine. So we need to set leaders and veterinarians up with success by pricing that into our P&L accounts as time on the diary. That isn't clinical time. It's face-to-face support time. It's a commitment to mentorship. And there's some ideas for starters. Okay. There's a reset, there's a rebalance coming. I can feel it. You're seeing it here in the United Kingdom, where we are so much further down the corporatization pathway, and now there's a real resurgence in independent practice ownership, with people coming back to the market who actually weren't old and retiring. They just took their money and now they're opening up a new practice, who are cashed up, who've learned their leadership lessons, and I think are doing it better. There is a renaissance and a rebirth of independent bougie boutique practices that are going to cause corporations some problems. And I think it is the time of, leadership's time is here. I think people get it, that it matters now. I hope they enact that, it's not just a bougie practice is one thing. A bougie culture is what everybody needs to have, where people are looked after. And bougie is maybe the wrong word, because that implies that it doesn't have to be about money. Like, I want people to be paid fairly in veterinary medicine, but we have to accept that we're only worth what pet owners will pay for us. And there is a limit on what that is. And it's not funded by insurance for the most part. So we're not going to be getting paid the same as our legal professional brothers and sisters. We're not going to be getting paid the same as medical professionals because the financial model's not there to support it. And if people want that, they can yell and scream as much as they like, but it's bullshit and they can just whistle because it's not going to happen
Yeah.
for most of us.
Or you'll
Uh,
price pets out of the ability of every
or
man.
exactly. And then suddenly, why do pets matter? Suddenly comes into relevance. We know they matter, but if nobody can afford them because when they get
Right.
sick, they have to be put down and go to the shelter, that ultimately hurts us more. So we're not paid badly. We're not paid brilliantly, but we're paid, I think we're paid reasonably. And the
Yeah.
rewards for us comes from the amazement of the work.
And
We've
of course,
robbed ourselves of that joy with crappy leadership.
oh, I can't agree with you more, because the mentorship and the collaboration, I think, is what keeps veterinary practices percolating along. If everyone is rowing the boat in the same direction and they
Mhm.
all feel free to raise their hand, they have agency to make decisions, they ask questions, they're not fearful about asking questions. I mean, even the mentor should feel free to ask questions because, as you know, veterinary medicine has come a long way, like the law has come a long way since I graduated. And I don't have a problem asking a younger attorney, well, what did they talk about this in, law school? And I know that the veterinarians are finding that there are so many things the new vets know that you'd like to learn. And then, of course, that wonderful age-old experience creates, an ability to do something that you would never have learned in law school, but that works,
Yeah.
to share that kind of information. It
Yeah.
it creates the ability for communication, transparency. I'm always a queen of transparency in a practice. If you're keeping everything secret from your people, they don't feel like they're rowing the boat with the same kind of oar.
Mm-mm. No, absolutely not. I mean, that's one of the reasons why my own practice, I've created a corporate, a cooperatively owned model, and I mean to leave it to the team in the fullness of time because I just
You know, I
think,
I said to an attorney years ago when a veterinarian sold his practice to his team. And I said, what do you think of that? And she was a corporate attorney, and she said, I would have told me left a lot of money on the table. And I said, and that is the mindset that we need to shift. I said, because yes, it's about having a comfortable retirement. Absolutely. I don't want anybody, not to have a comfortable retirement. However, looking ahead and making sure not only that you leave your staff in good hands, but that you leave your client in good hands.
yeah, I mean, you can't blame anybody for taking the money. It's an insane amount of money. Any sane human being would do that. But that amount of money is behind us. The big multiples are behind us, and thank God it is, because now, you can't blame anyone for doing it. But to use your phrase, the experience that has left behind for everybody else has sucked.
Yeah.
So what we can do is now we can deal with that, take ownership of that, and thankfully those multiples are not available any longer. And now we can get back to actually running practices in a way that's sustainable. And I hope it
Everyone,
means,
for the staff, for the owners, and for the clients, because if they're
yeah,
not walking through the door, you
and
don't have.
most importantly for the pets, where we get to put our critical thinking brains into gear to be able to deliver really well thought out, modern spectrum of care, fit the shape of the lives of the pet and the family sorts of care, or preventative care or interventional care that means animals live a better, happier, healthier quality of life, because that's what we're all here for.
I couldn't end the podcast any better. I can't believe we have come to the end. So much to talk about. When I go back and review this, I'm going to send you a note with all the other things we have to talk about come up in 2025. Because Dave, it isn't that any kind of practice is incorrect or should be undone. It's that we should always strive to be mentors, be mentees, be collaborative, be transparent, and inclusive. Because if you're not asking your clients, colleagues of mine just started a new business, and it's a great business. It's a great business. And I said to them, did you ask your end users what they want? And they said, well, no, we know what they want. I said, no, you don't. You didn't ask them. I said, go back and ask them what it is they would like. If you were creating a business, what would you like us to help you with? And they go, God, we got so much great information we never would have gotten. I said,
Mhm.
because you're serving what you think Dave Nicol wants. But
Mhm.
unless you ask Dave Nicol what he wants, you know, you're not going to really know. You can presume what he might
Yeah.
need from watching him, but you really need to ask him. So Dave, you've been fabulous. How can people get in touch with you? How can they take part in the Veterinary Leadership Academy, or in, now you're a vet, now what, anything? Tell them how they can get in touch with you.
Everything, go to drdavenicol.com, drdavenicol.com. All of the resources, ton of which are completely free, are
That's
on
what
there.
I love
But
about you.
yeah, information on the Veterinary Leadership Academy and the support work we give to younger early stage career vets are on there. And it's the early stage career vet stuff is so affordable. Like, you can get the book and the course for like about $100 worth of investment, and that alone will change the trajectory of your
And
career.
you have to do it, right, Dave?
You have to do the work. Back to the triathlon.
Yep. You
Close
have
it
to
out.
do it. Yep.
Set your
What was
goal,
it you
commit,
said?
and do
Yep.
the work.
Yeah. If it's not a heck yes, it's a no.
That's the clean version.
I love you, Dave. Thanks so much. And for everyone listening, look forward to having Dr. Dave come back, because he has such a wealth of information that will help not only the pet owners, the lawyers who are part of the pet owners' lives, the veterinarians and their staff, but me. And I'm so grateful. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Deborah. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.